20 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had expected. Humanity, armed with the knowledge from the Valoran crystal and their own endless curiosity, rose faster than any species in history. They built new ships. They discovered new technologies. They made alliances with other young species who had been kept down by the old powers. Earth was no longer a joke. It was a force, and at the center of it all was a man named Park Ji-hoon. He was 37 years old now, which was still young by galactic standards. His hair had a few streaks of gray, and his face had lines that came from years of hard work. But his eyes were the same as they had been when he was 17. Calm, deep, quiet. Ji-hoon was not a politician or a general. He was an engineer, the greatest engineer humanity had ever produced. He had taken the knowledge from the Valoran crystal and combined it with human creativity. He had invented things that even the oldest species had never imagined. His designs powered Earth's new fleet. His ideas had reshaped how humans lived and worked, but he never bragged about any of it. He still spoke softly. He still avoided crowds. He still preferred to work alone in his laboratory, solving problems while others took the credit. Some people called him the most important human alive. Ji-hoon just shrugged and went back to work. Today was different, though. Today, he had to leave his laboratory. Today, the galaxy was about to change again. The Galactic Council had called a special meeting. After centuries of being ruled by the old species, the Council was finally going to vote on a new structure. Young species would have equal voices. Old species would have to share power. It was the biggest change in galactic history, and the person who had pushed for this change was coming to Earth. Ji-hoon stood on the landing platform, watching the sky. A ship was descending through the clouds. It was a Valoran ship, elegant and beautiful, with wings that caught the sunlight. He recognized the design. It was a royal transport. Captain Yuna stood beside him. She was older now too, with white hair and a walking stick. But her eyes were still sharp. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No," Ji-hoon said honestly. Yuna laughed. "Good. I would be worried if you were." The ship landed softly on the platform. Its door opened, and figures began to walk down the ramp. They were Valorans, tall and graceful, wearing formal robes. Guards came first, then advisors, then servants. And finally, she appeared. Queen Nira of the Valoran Empire walked down the ramp like she was walking on air. She was older too, though Valorans aged slowly. Her face was the same as Ji-hoon remembered, beautiful and proud. But there was something different about her now. Something softer. She wore a crown of silver and crystal. Her robes were white and gold. And when she reached the bottom of the ramp, she stopped and looked directly at Ji-hoon. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Nira smiled. It was a real smile, not the cold one she had worn when they first met. "Park Ji-hoon," she said, "you have not changed much." "Neither have you, Your Majesty," Ji-hoon replied. "Liar." Nira walked toward him. "I have changed a great deal. And you are partly responsible." She stopped in front of him, close enough that they could speak without others hearing. 20 years ago, you were a boy who refused to fight back when I mocked him. Now you are the most famous human in the galaxy. Your inventions have changed everything. Your ideas have inspired millions. And yet you still speak like you are nobody important. "I am nobody important," Ji-hoon said. "I just solve problems." Nira shook her head. "That is what I always found strange about you. You truly believe that? You truly do not care about fame or power, do you?" Ji-hoon asked. The question surprised her. She thought about it carefully. "I used to," she admitted. "When I was princess, I cared about nothing else. I wanted the galaxy to bow to me. I wanted to be remembered forever." She paused. "But then I met a human boy who did not bow, who did not care what I thought. who saved my life and asked for nothing in return. And slowly, I began to wonder if I had been wrong about everything. She looked at him with those golden eyes. You changed me, Ji-hoon. I do not know if you meant to, but you did. Ji-hoon was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised even himself. When you mocked me that day, I was angry. I wanted to prove you wrong. I wanted to show you that humans were not worthless. I know, Nira said. You told me once. But that is not why I kept working, Ji-hoon continued. I did not build all those things for revenge. I built them because I love building things. I love solving problems. I love seeing an idea become real. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that were beginning to appear in the evening light. You asked me once why I chose to be quiet instead of loud. I told you that loud words fade. But that was not the whole truth. Then what is the whole truth? Nira asked. Ji-hoon smiled, that same small smile from 20 years ago. The truth is that I am not quiet because I am weak. I am quiet because I am listening. I am watching. I am learning. And when you are busy listening and learning, you do not have time to talk. Nira stared at him. Then she laughed. It was not a mocking laugh like before. It was a real laugh, full of warmth. You are the strangest person I have ever met, she said. And I have met thousands of people. Thank you, Ji-hoon said. I think. They stood together in comfortable silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Around them, guards and advisors waited patiently. The council vote tomorrow, Nira said finally. It will pass. The old order will end. Young species and old species will finally be equal. Is that what you want? Ji-hoon asked. Yes, Nira said without hesitation. It is what is right. The old ways were not fair. I see that now. It took me many years and many teachers. She glanced at him. Some teachers did not even know they were teaching. Ji-hoon nodded slowly. Then I am glad. Will you come to the vote? Nira asked. It would mean a lot to many people if you were there. You are a symbol. Ji-hoon, a symbol of what young species can achieve. Ji-hoon thought about it. He hated crowds. He hated attention. Every part of him wanted to say no and go back to his laboratory. But some things were more important than comfort. I will come, he said. Nira's face lit up. Thank you. She turned to leave, then stopped. She reached into her robe and pulled out something small. It was a crystal, the same one she had given him 20 years ago. Ji-hoon returned it to her after copying all the knowledge from it. I want you to have this, she said. For real this time. Not as a payment for saving my life, but as a gift from a friend. She pressed it into his hand. Friends? Ji-hoon asked, surprised. If you will have me, Nira said. I know I was not kind to you when we first met. I know I said terrible things. But people can change. I have changed. Ji-hoon looked at the crystal, then back at her. People can change, he agreed. I believe that. He closed his fingers around the crystal. Friends, he said. Nira smiled again. Then she walked back to her ship, her robes flowing behind her like water. Her guards and advisors followed. Captain Yuna walked up to Ji-hoon as the ship lifted off. Well, she said. That was unexpected. Yes, Ji-hoon agreed. A Valaran queen calling a human her friend. 20 years ago, that would have been impossible. Many things that were impossible are possible now, Ji-hoon said. They watched the ship disappear into the evening sky. You did this. You know, Yuna said quietly. You changed the galaxy. Not with weapons or wars. Just by being yourself. Ji-hoon shook his head. I did nothing. I just watched and listened and learned. And when problems came, I solved them. That is exactly what I mean, Yuna said. You showed everyone that quiet strength is still strength, that you do not have to be loud to be powerful. She patted his shoulder with her old, wrinkled hand. I am proud of you, Ji-hoon. Your grandfather would be proud too. Ji-hoon felt something warm in his chest. He did not cry. He had not cried in years, but he felt the emotion anyway. Thank you, he said. They stood together as night fell over Earth. Above them, thousands of stars glittered in the darkness. Each star had worlds around it. Each world had people. And somewhere among all those people, stories were being told about a quiet human boy who had changed everything. Ji-hoon did not care about the stories. He cared about the work. He cared about the future. He cared about building a galaxy where species helped each other instead of fighting. Tomorrow, the vote would happen. Tomorrow, history would change. But tonight, Ji-hoon just stood quietly and watched the stars. Some things never changed. And some things did not need to. Loud words fade. Quiet actions echo forever. The news spread across the station like fire. By the next morning, everyone knew about the human boy who had saved the Galactic Council station. Aliens who had ignored Ji-hoon before now stared at him when he walked by. Some looked curious. Some looked grateful. Some looked angry, as if they could not accept that a human had done what their own engineers could not. Ji-hoon did not enjoy the attention. He tried to return to his quiet life, walking through the station and watching. But it was impossible now. Everywhere he went, whispers followed him. That is him. The human. So young. So strange. Maybe humans are not as useless as we thought. Captain Yuna was very proud. She hugged Ji-hoon when she heard the news, something she had never done before. Her eyes were wet with tears. You did it, she said. You showed them. I did not mean to show anyone anything, Ji-hoon replied. I just did not want to die. Captain Yuna laughed. That is the most human thing I have ever heard. We do our best work when our lives depend on it. The Earth delegation was suddenly popular. Species that had refused to meet with them before were now requesting appointments. The Lithani traders wanted to discuss technology exchanges. The Vexury scientists wanted to study human problem-solving methods. Even some Krellans, the proud warrior species, sent messages of respect, but the Valorans were quiet. Princess Nira had not spoken publicly since the crisis. Her people said nothing about the human who had saved their princess's life. Some saw this as rudeness. Others saw it as shame. On the third day after the crisis, something unexpected happened. Ji-hoon was sitting in the observation deck, his favorite spot, when a Valoran guard approached him. The guard was tall and stern, wearing silver armor. The princess wishes to see you, the guard said. You will come with me. It was not a request. Ji-hoon stood up slowly. He remembered Captain Yuna's warning about Princess Nira, but refusing a royal summons would cause problems for the entire Earth delegation. He had no choice. Lead the way, he said. The guard took him through parts of the station he had never seen before. The Valoran section was even more beautiful than he had imagined. The walls were covered in crystals that glowed softly. The floors were polished until they shined like mirrors. Music played in the air, soft and sad. They reached a large door made of gold and white metal. The guard knocked once, then stepped aside. The door opened on its own. Enter, said a voice from inside. Ji-hoon walked in. The room was like a garden. Plants from the Valoran homeworld grew everywhere, filling the air with sweet perfume. A small stream ran through the middle of the room, with tiny glowing fish swimming in it. And sitting beside the stream, wearing simple white clothes instead of royal robes, was Princess Nira. She looked different than before. Younger, somehow. More real. Without her crown and her fancy clothes, she almost looked like a normal person. Sit, she said, pointing to a cushion across from her. Ji-hoon said. He kept his face calm, showing nothing. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The princess studied him with those golden eyes. Ji-hoon waited patiently. He was good at waiting. You confuse me, Nira finally said. Ji-hoon tilted his head slightly. How? When I mocked you, you did not fight back. When you saved the station, you did not ask for reward. When everyone praised you, you tried to hide. She leaned forward. You are not like other humans I've met. They are always loud, always wanting attention. But you are quiet. Why? Ji-hoon thought about the question carefully before answering. My grandfather taught me something when I was young, he said. He said that the tree that bends in the storm survives. The tree that stands rigid breaks. I learned to bend. That sounds like weakness, Nira said. Maybe, Ji-hoon agreed. Or maybe it is a different kind of strength. Nira frowned. She was not used to people disagreeing with her. But she did not seem angry. She seemed interested. I owe you a debt, she said. You saved my life. Among my people, this is a serious thing. I must repay it. You owe me nothing, Ji-hoon said. I did not save you specifically. I saved everyone. But I am included in everyone. Nira's eyes flashed with something like humor. You cannot escape this debt so easily, human. I am a princess. My debts must be paid. Ji-hoon sighed quietly. He had not wanted any of this. But arguing with royalty seemed like a bad idea. What do you want to give me? He asked. Nira reached into her robe and pulled out a small object. It was a crystal, about the size of a coin, glowing with soft purple light. She held it out to him. This is a Valoran memory stone, she said. It contains knowledge. Engineering knowledge. Secrets that we have never shared with younger species. When you return to Earth, you can use this to advance your technology by centuries. Ji-hoon stared at the crystal. He understood what this meant. The Valorans guarded their knowledge more carefully than anything else. Giving this to a human was almost unthinkable. Why? He asked. You believe humans are inferior. Why give us this? Nira looked away. For the first time, she seemed uncomfortable. Because you proved me wrong, she said quietly. I thought humans had nothing to offer. I thought your short lives made you worthless. But in that engineering room, you saw a solution that none of our experts could see. You think differently than we do. And perhaps that is valuable. She looked back at him. I am not saying I was wrong about everything. Humans are still young, still dangerous to yourselves. But maybe you deserve a chance to prove yourselves. Ji-hoon took the crystal. It felt warm in his hand, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Thank you, he said simply. Nira nodded. Then her expression changed, becoming colder again. More like the princess he had first met. This does not mean we are friends, she said. I still do not understand you. And I do not trust things I do not understand. I know, Ji-hoon said. But I will be watching you, Park Ji-hoon. I want to see what you become. Ji-hoon stood up and bowed respectfully. Then I will try to be worth watching. He turned and walked toward the door. Just before he reached it, Nira's voice stopped him. One question, she said. When I mocked you in front of everyone, were you angry? Ji-hoon paused. He thought about that moment, about the laughter and the humiliation. Then he turned his head slightly. Yes, he said honestly. I was angry, but you did not show it. No. Why? Ji-hoon smiled for the first time since entering the room. It was a small smile, barely visible. Because anger is loud, he said. And I prefer to be quiet. He walked out of the room, leaving the princess alone with her thoughts. Outside, Captain Yuna was waiting. She saw the crystal in his hand and her eyes went wide. Is that what I think it is? She whispered. Ji-hun nodded. Captain Yuna covered her mouth with her hand. She looked like she might faint. Ji-hun, she said slowly, do you understand what you are holding? This could change everything for Earth. This could make us equal to the older species in just a few generations. I know, Ji-hun said. That is why I took it. He looked back at the golden door one more time. She thinks she is repaying a debt, he said quietly. But really, she just gave us the future. Captain Yuna put her arm around his shoulders. Let us go home, Ji-hun. We have work to do. They walked away together, leaving the Valaran section behind. In his pocket, the crystal glowed softly, carrying the knowledge of 1,000 years. And somewhere behind them, Princess Nira sat alone in her garden, wondering if she had made the right choice. Wondering what the quiet human boy would become. She would find out soon enough. It happened on the 7th day that Ji-hun was in the station's lower levels, exploring the engineering section. This was where the machines that kept the station running were located. Giant engines hummed behind thick metal walls. Pipes carried energy from one part of the station to another. It was loud and hot, and most visitors never came here. But Ji-hun was curious. He wanted to understand how the station worked. So he walked through the corridors, looking at everything. The alien engineers barely noticed him. They were too busy with their work. Then the lights went out. For a moment, everything was dark. Ji-hun stood still, waiting. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows everywhere. Alarms began to scream. The sound was so loud that Ji-hun had to cover his ears. Something was very wrong. Ji-hun ran toward the main engineering room. When he got there, he saw chaos. Engineers were shouting at each other in different languages. Screens showed warnings in a dozen alien scripts. In the center of the room, a massive machine was sparking and smoking. It looked like the heart of the station, and it was dying. What happened? Someone shouted. The main power core. An engineer yelled back. It is failing. We have maybe 30 minutes before the whole station loses life support. Ji-hun felt his blood go cold. Life support. That meant air. That meant heat. If the power core failed completely, everyone on the station would die. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species, including the Earth delegation, including Captain Yuna, including himself. He pushed through the crowd, trying to get closer to the machine. He needed to see it. He needed to understand what was wrong. The engineers were so panicked that they did not notice him. The power core was a massive cylinder, taller than a building. It glowed with a sickly yellow light instead of the healthy blue it was supposed to be. Cables and pipes connected it to everything else. And right in the middle, Ji-hun could see the problem. A section of the core had cracked. Energy was leaking out through the crack, causing the whole system to become unstable. The Valaran engineers were trying to seal it with their advanced tools, but nothing was working. The crack was too deep, and the energy was too wild. It is impossible, one of the senior engineers said. His purple skin had gone pale with fear. The sealing compounds cannot hold against this level of energy discharge. We need to evacuate the station. There is no time for full evacuation. Another engineer shouted. The transport ships cannot carry everyone. We would have to choose who lives and who dies. The room fell silent at those words. Everyone knew what they meant. If they could not fix the core, they would have to make terrible choices. Old species versus young species. Important people versus common people. It would be a nightmare. Ji-hun's mind was racing. He thought about everything he had learned in the past week. He thought about the Valaran technology he had studied. He thought about the engineering books he had read back home on Earth. And slowly, an idea began to form. It was crazy. It was probably stupid. But it was the only thing he could think of. Excuse me, he said. No one heard him. They were all too busy panicking. Excuse me, he said louder. Still nothing. Ji-hoon took a deep breath. Then he climbed onto a nearby table and shouted at the top of his lungs. I have an idea. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. 100 alien eyes stared at the small human boy standing on the table. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. One Valoran engineer laughed. A human? You think a human can solve this? Go back to your delegation, child. Let the real engineers work. But another voice cut through the crowd. Let him speak. Ji-hoon looked up and saw Princess Nira. She had entered the engineering room with her guards. Her golden eyes were fixed on him, curious and cold. She looked just as scared as everyone else, but she was hiding it better. Let the human speak, she said again. We have no other ideas. What harm can it do? The engineers stepped back, giving Ji-hoon space. He jumped down from the table and walked toward the power core. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. But his voice was calm. The problem is the crack, he said, pointing at the damaged section. You are trying to seal it from the outside, but the energy pressure from inside is too strong. The seal keeps breaking. Yes, we know this, an engineer said impatiently. That is why it is impossible. What if you do not seal it? Ji-hoon asked. Everyone stared at him like he was crazy. If you do not seal the crack, the core will explode, the senior engineer said slowly, as if talking to a stupid child. I do not mean leave it open, Ji-hoon said. I mean redirect the energy. Let it leak, but control where it goes. He pointed at the pipes connected to the core. These pipes carry energy to different parts of the station, right? What if you disconnected some of the less important systems and used those pipes to channel the leaking energy? You create a bypass. The energy flows out through the crack, through the new path, and into a safe container. The pressure inside the core drops. Then you can seal the crack properly. The room was silent. The engineers looked at each other. That is insane, someone said. That might work, someone else said. The senior engineer walked toward Ji-hoon. He was a Valoran, old and wise-looking. He studied Ji-hoon with careful eyes. Where did you learn engineering, human? I read books, Ji-hoon said simply. And I watched. I watched how things work. The engineer turned to his team. Run the calculations, now. For 5 tense minutes, the engineers worked at their screens. Numbers flew across the displays. Simulations ran. And finally, the senior engineer looked up. It works, he said, his voice full of disbelief. The human solution works. It is rough. It is primitive. But it will work. Then do it. Princess Nira commanded. Quickly. What followed was the most intense 30 minutes of Ji-hoon's life. He stood in the corner, watching as the engineers followed his plan. They disconnected pipes. They redirected energy flows. They welded emergency containers to catch the excess power. It was messy and dangerous, and twice they almost failed. But slowly, the power core stabilized. The sickly yellow glow returned to healthy blue. The alarms stopped screaming. The lights came back on. The station was saved. A cheer went up from the engineers. They hugged each other and laughed with relief. Some of them even cried. Death had been so close, and now it was gone. Ji-hoon did not cheer. He just stood quietly in his corner, watching. His hands were shaking. He had not realized how scared he had been until it was over. Then he felt someone looking at him. He turned and saw Princess Nira. She was walking toward him, her guards following behind. The engineers stepped aside to let her pass. She stopped in front of Ji-hoon. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Her golden eyes were unreadable. You saved my life, she said. You saved everyone's lives. Ji-hoon shook his head. The engineers did the work. I just had an idea. An idea that none of us had, Nira said. An idea that came from a 17-year-old human with a short lifespan and primitive technology. Ji-hoon said nothing. He did not know what to say. Princess Nira looked at him differently now. The mockery was gone from her eyes. In its place was something else. Confusion, maybe. Or respect. Or fear. Ji-hoon could not tell. What is your name? She asked. Park Ji-hoon. I will remember that name, she said. Then she turned and walked away. Ji-hoon watched her go. He did not feel proud. He did not feel victorious. He just felt tired. He wanted to find Captain Yuna and tell her what happened. He wanted to go home, but deep inside, he knew that something had changed. The galaxy had noticed him now. For better or worse, he was no longer invisible, and this was only the beginning. The space station was bigger than anything Park Ji-hoon had ever seen. It floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower, with lights blinking from every corner. Ji-hoon was only 17 years old, and he was the youngest person in the entire Earth delegation. He did not know why they had brought him here. He was just a student, a nobody from a small town in Korea. But his teacher, Captain Yuna, had insisted. She said he had a special mind. She said he could see things that others could not see. Ji-hoon did not believe her, but he came anyway. How could he say no to a chance to visit the Galactic Council station? The humans walked through the long white corridors in a single line. There were 12 of them, all wearing the blue uniforms of Earth's diplomatic service. Ji-hoon walked at the back, trying to make himself invisible. He looked at everything with wide eyes. The walls were smooth and clean. The air smelled like nothing he had ever smelled before. It was too clean, too perfect. Alien species walked past them without looking. Some were tall and thin, with skin like silver metal. Others were short and round, with many eyes that blinked in different directions. Ji-hoon had read about all of them in his books, but seeing them in person was different. It made his heart beat fast. The Earth delegation entered a large hall. This was the main reception area, where all the important species gathered to talk and make deals. The ceiling was so high that Ji-hoon could not see where it ended. Floating lights moved through the air like slow fireflies. Music played from somewhere, but Ji-hoon could not find the source. And then he saw them. The Valorans. They stood in the center of the hall like they owned it. Maybe they did. The Valoran Empire was one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had been traveling through space when humans were still living in caves. Their technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic. The Valorans were beautiful. They were tall and elegant, with pale purple skin and long white hair. Their eyes were large and golden, like two small suns. They wore robes made of fabric that seemed to flow like water. Everything about them looked expensive and important. In the middle of the Valoran group stood a young female. She was different from the others. She wore a golden crown on her head, and her robes were more beautiful than anyone else's. This was Princess Nira, the daughter of the Valoran Emperor. Ji-hoon had seen her picture in his studies. She was famous across the galaxy for her beauty and her intelligence. She was also famous for her pride. The Earth delegation approached the Valorans. Captain Yuna stepped forward and bowed her head in respect. The other humans did the same. Ji-hoon bowed too, keeping his eyes on the floor. We are honored to meet the representatives of the Valoran Empire, Captain Yuna said in a calm voice. Earth hopes to build a friendship with your great civilization. Princess Nira looked at the humans like they were insects. Her golden eyes moved slowly from one face to another. When her gaze reached Ji-hoon, she stopped. She stared at him for a long moment. What is this? She asked. Her voice was like cold music. You bring a child to the Galactic Council? Ji-hoon felt his face become hot. He wanted to disappear into the floor, but he did not move. He did not speak. Captain Yuna smiled politely. This is Park Ki-hoon. He's one of our brightest young minds. We believe in giving our youth opportunities to learn. Princess Nera laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who found something very funny in a mean way. Her courtiers, the noble Valorans who stood around her, laughed too. The sound filled the hall. A bright young mind? Princess Nera said. How old is this child? 15? 16? 17, Ji-hoon said quietly. It was the first word he had spoken since entering the station. The princess raised one elegant eyebrow. 17. And how long do humans live? 70 years? 80 if they are lucky? She shook her head slowly. We Valorans live for 1,000 years. Your brightest minds die before they can learn anything of value. Your species discovered fire only a moment ago in galactic time. You are still babies, playing with toys you do not understand. More laughter from the courtiers. Some other alien species nearby had stopped to watch. Ji-hoon could feel their eyes on him. He could feel the embarrassment of the entire Earth delegation, but he did not react. He stood perfectly still, his face showing nothing. Inside, his heart was burning. Inside, he wanted to shout that humans had built great things, that they had survived ice ages and wars and diseases, that they had traveled to space in ships made with their own hands. But he said nothing. Captain, Yuna put a gentle hand on his shoulder. She was telling him to stay calm. Ji-hoon already knew this. He had learned long ago that angry words solved nothing. His grandfather had taught him that lesson. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the wisest, his grandfather used to say. True strength is quiet. Princess Nera seemed disappointed that the human boy did not react. She had expected him to argue, to defend himself. That would have given her more reasons to laugh. But his silence confused her. Does the child not speak? She asked, tilting her head. Perhaps humans lose their voice when they are scared. Ji-hoon looked up and met her eyes. For just 1 second, their gazes locked. The princess saw something in those human eyes. She saw no fear. She saw no anger. She saw something calm and deep, like a still ocean dot. Then Ji-hoon simply bowed his head and stepped back, moving behind the other delegates. He disappeared into their shadows like he had never been there. Princess Nera frowned. This was not the reaction she wanted. She turned away from the humans, already bored. Come, she said to her courtiers. Let us speak with civilizations that matter. The Valorans walked away without another word. The Earth delegation stood in silence for a moment. Some of them looked angry. Some of them looked sad. But Captain Yuna was smiling. She looked at Ji-hoon with pride in her eyes. You did well, she whispered to him. I did nothing, Ji-hoon replied. Exactly, Captain Yuna said. And that was exactly the right thing to do. Ji-hoon did not understand what she meant, but he remembered the princess's golden eyes. He remembered her cruel laugh. And deep inside his quiet heart, something changed. He did not want revenge. He did not want to prove her wrong. He simply wanted to learn. He wanted to understand this galaxy that looked down on his species. And so, while the diplomats talked and argued about trade agreements, Ji-hoon began to watch. He watched everything. He listened to every conversation. He studied every alien species that passed by. The princess had called humans babies. Maybe she was right. But babies grow up. And sometimes, the quiet ones grow up to become the most powerful of all. 3 days passed on the Galactic Council Station. The diplomats from Earth spent most of their time in meeting rooms, talking with representatives from other species. They discussed trade. They discussed technology. They discussed the possibility of Earth joining the council as a junior member. Ji-hoon was not allowed in these meetings. He was too young, they said. Too inexperienced. So he was left alone, free to wander the station as he pleased. Most people would have felt bored or useless. But Ji-hoon felt something different. He felt grateful because now he could watch. The station was like a small city. It had markets where aliens sold strange goods. It had gardens where plants from 100 different worlds grew together. It had libraries filled with knowledge from across the galaxy. And it had the Valoran section, where the princess and her people lived in luxury. Ji-hoon walked through all of it. He moved quietly, like a shadow. He wore simple clothes, nothing that would attract attention. Most aliens did not even notice him. To them, he was just another human, a member of a young and unimportant species. They talked freely around him, not caring if he heard and Ji-hoon heard everything. He learned that the Valorans were not as united as they seemed. There were different groups within their empire, each wanting different things. Some wanted peace with the younger species. Others wanted to keep them down forever. Princess Nira belonged to the second group. She believed that the older races should rule the galaxy, and everyone else should serve them. Ji-hoon learned that the Valoran ships, while beautiful, had a weakness. They were powered by special crystals that were very rare. If these crystals were damaged, the ships became useless. The Valorans kept this secret carefully, but Ji-hoon heard two engineers talking about it in a quiet corner of the station. He learned that the station itself was old. Very old. It had been built thousands of years ago, and some of its systems were starting to fail. The council kept repairing it, but the repairs were like putting bandages on deep wounds. One day, something big would break. Ji-hoon wrote nothing down. He kept everything in his memory. His mind was like a sponge, soaking up information. He did not know why he was doing this. He just knew that knowledge was power. And right now, knowledge was the only power he had. On the fourth day, Captain Yuna found him in one of the station's observation decks. He was sitting by a large window, looking out at the stars. She sat down next to him without saying anything. For a while, they just watched the universe together. "You have been busy," Captain Yuna finally said. Ji-hoon looked at her. "How do you know?" "I have my ways." She smiled. "I asked around. Several people have noticed a quiet human boy walking through places he should not be. You are lucky that humans all look the same to most aliens. They could not describe you well enough for anyone to find you." Ji-hoon felt a little worried. "Am I in trouble?" "No," Captain Yuna said. "I am proud of you. This is exactly what I hoped you would do." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a metal stick with buttons on it. "Do you know what this is?" Ji-hoon shook his head. "It is a Valoran engineering tool. Very expensive. Very rare. I borrowed it from one of their ships when no one was looking." She handed it to him. "I want you to study it. Learn how it works. Then put it back before anyone notices it is gone." Ji-hoon took the device carefully. It felt warm in his hands, like it was alive. "Why?" "Because understanding their technology is the first step to matching it," Captain Yuna said. "The Valorans think we are stupid. They think we cannot learn. But humans have always been good at one thing. We copy what works, we improve it, and we make it our own." Ji-hoon looked at the device. It was beautiful, with lines and patterns that seemed to glow faintly. He had no idea how it worked, but he wanted to find out. "The princess," he said quietly. "She really believes we are nothing." "She does," Captain Yuna agreed. "And that is her weakness. She underestimates us. All of them do. They see our short lives as a curse. But think about it, Ji-hoon. We live fast. We learn fast. We adapt fast. A Valaran might spend 100 years learning one skill. A human masters it in 10. Our short lives make us hungry. They make us desperate. And desperation creates innovation. Ji-hoon thought about this. It made sense. Back on Earth, humans had gone from horses to spaceships in less than 200 years. That was nothing in galactic time. The Valorans were right that humans were young. But being young meant they had energy. It meant they had hunger. What do you want me to do? Ji-hoon asked. Keep watching. Keep learning. And when the time comes, be ready. Captain Yuna stood up and looked down at him. I chose you for this mission because you are different from other people, Ji-hoon. You do not need to talk to feel strong. You do not need attention to feel important. You are comfortable being invisible. That is a rare gift. She walked toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. Stay away from Princess Nira. She is dangerous. She is also curious. She noticed that you did not react to her insults, and it bothers her. She might try to talk to you again, to understand you. Do not let her. Ji-hoon nodded. He understood after Captain Yuna left. Ji-hoon spent hours studying the Valoran device. He took it apart in his mind, imagining how each piece connected to the others. He compared it to human tools he had used back home. He found similarities. He found differences. By the end of the night, he understood the basic idea behind it, that it was not magic. It was just technology. Advanced technology, yes, but still based on rules. Rules that could be learned. The next day, Ji-hoon put the device back where Captain Yuna had taken it from. No one noticed. He continued his walks through the station, gathering more information. He learned about the other species too. The Krellans, who were warriors. The Lithani, who were traders. The Vexari, who were scientists. Each had their strengths and weaknesses, and everywhere he went, Ji-hoon saw the same thing. The older species looked down on the younger ones. They hoarded their knowledge like treasure. They believed that power should stay with those who already had it, but Ji-hoon also saw cracks in their system. He saw young Valorans who disagreed with their elders. He saw Krellans who were tired of fighting. He saw Lithani who wanted fair trade with everyone, not just the rich species. There were good people in every group. People who wanted change. One evening, Ji-hoon was walking through the market when he felt someone watching him. He turned around slowly and saw her. Princess Nira. She was standing at a distance, surrounded by her guards. But her golden eyes were locked on him. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Ji-hoon remembered Captain Yuna's warning. He bowed his head politely, then turned and walked away. He did not run. He did not show fear. He just left, calm and quiet. Behind him, Princess Nira watched him go. Her smile faded. This human boy confused her. He did not act like the other humans, who were always trying to impress or apologize. He acted like he did not care what she thought. It bothered her more than she wanted to admit. But Nira was patient. She had centuries to figure out this strange boy. And she always got what she wanted in the end. What she did not know was that Ji-hoon was patient too. And he was learning things that would change everything.